Hi, my name's Ian Wallace. I call myself the Messed Up Counsellor, which is quite an intriguing name. And the podcast you're about to see is one of many, and we've been doing about a year now. So you can look back and see all the things we've talked about with guests and on my own over the process. A lot of the information I use in the podcast initially came from the first book I wrote in 2011. Why do we do that? What do we do about it? And that came out and was the basis of all my learning, understanding at that time, which is going back a few years now. And that process of understanding how the world works for people, how we can alter, change, and adapt it, was kind of what it was there to do with the initial stages. I've made that now an audiobook as well, so it's available on Amazon as an audio file that you can check out and you can download to your heart's content, and hopefully that will be helpful. In the podcasts, we're trying to look at all sorts of things that about human interactions, human dynamics, the world, and how we might understand it more or change it more. So it gives you lots of ideas and tools in order to think about and look at different ways of being or dealing with things. And hopefully that brings people together and makes people more able to connect and communicate. Lots of topics. If you ever want to connect to me, just obviously drop me a comment on the podcast and I shall try as much as possible to reply. And if you've got any ideas of things that we might want to use on the podcasts, then please let me know. My name's Ian Wallace. Thanks for looking and thanks for listening. Hi, and welcome to another podcast from Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. What I'd like to look at today is when we feel misunderstood, we feel that people aren't able to understand what we're saying or doing or our interactions. Sometimes we don't speak the same language as people. We all have our own language structure, even if we're speaking our English, French, Italian, German. We have our own interpretation of what that language is and what they're meaning from when they're talking to us. And the words are a very small proportion of the actual communication, as I've said before. So when we're feeling misunderstood, when we don't feel to be speaking the same language, then that can get really, really hard to understand, to see what's expected of us, where we're going, what we're doing. And sometimes we take on board what we think people will react to what we're saying. So if, for example, I'm trying to say something to somebody that is maybe not necessarily easy, something that's a difficult thing to talk about, what I will do in my head before I even speak the language is I will try and work out how that's going to be taken, what's going to be reactions to it, what's going to be the outcome of it, how that's going to work with the relationship I have with that person. I'm doing all those things in that conversation without even realizing usually, because a lot of things are going off in our brains that we don't even know most of the time. So the language I'm using, the topic that I'm talking about, is always going to be assessed by me before I deliver it. Certainly if it's something that could be awkward to talk about or is something that's possible confrontation. So I'm going to check that out. I'm going to try and use whatever historical data I've got in order to work out what the reaction to that piece of information will be. Now, I'm doing that in microseconds. It's flashing through my brain and how it is. Now, I might do one of two or three things, really. I might think about what I was going to put across, and then I might alter it, change it, adapt it. I might make it less confrontational. I might decide not to have that conversation because it is too awkward. I might have the conversation, as I've said, and then maybe monitor it as I'm working that communication with the reaction I'm getting. So all those things are part of my communication, your communication processes, to a lesser or greater degree. And as we're doing that, as we're looking at what the reaction may or may not be, we're using this historical data. When I've had situations with this person before, how did they react? I've had situations with other people with this kind of information, how did they react? And I'm using all that to ascertain what it is that I need to do, to change, to alter, in order to make that message more comfortable, more okay. But in doing so, I'm trying to get into the other person's head. I'm trying to understand or assume what their reaction is going to be from the information I've already got. Now, that's never going to fully work, obviously, because we can never be in somebody's head that well. We can never know somebody that well. It's impossible. Even if we live with people, even if we're in a relation with people many, many years, we don't know them that well to know exactly how they would react. So it's always an assumption, and assumptions are always going to be misunderstood because they aren't that person. They're you and your world and your thinking and your thoughts. So when we're having that conversation or going to have that conversation and we're trying to work all this stuff out beforehand, is there any wonder that it goes wrong? Is there any wonder that people get confused? Is there any wonder that actually I don't get to say what I was trying to say because I've modified it so much that actually it doesn't make sense or it doesn't come across as being real? It's a mismatch of stuff. There's certain people who use conversation in a way that I call it painting the picture but losing the content. And you'll find this with a lot of people when they're not sure about something or they're not sure about the relationship or the person they're engaging with. They'll widen the conversation. They'll say the same thing 3, 4, 5, 10 times. Maybe in different ways because they're trying to work out the best way to say it to get that across. But that is very elaborate usually and a lot of detail. It's like the picture, the colours. We're looking at the leaves, we're looking at the trees, we're looking at the grass. So we're studying all that stuff and giving all that information, but we actually forget to talk about the main aspect of the picture. And people do that all the time. You'll have had situations where you come away from a conversation going, what was all that about? What were they trying to say? I'm really confused. Those kind of things. Because that painting the picture but losing the content is kind of a normal one that I see a lot of when people are feeling insecure. They don't know where they are. They don't know what the situation scenario is. And so they talk. They fill the space. And some people do that with everything they say. If somebody is fairly insecure, then they may fill that space with all sorts of things because they don't want to reply. They don't want anything from the other person because that would disturb or disrupt or create awkwardness for them. So they fill that time, that space with lots and lots and lots of words. And then they get concerned about not being heard, not being listened to. Because in that exploration of the picture, giving them all those different colours and situations, scenarios, pixels, whatever you're talking about within that, then people switch off. And they're no longer listening to you. They may be looking at you, they may be sharing the space with you, but their head is usually somewhere else and somewhere more important for them. Because they've lost interest, basically, in what you're trying to tell them. So there's a couple of things that you might find helpful in when you're having conversations that certainly mean something to you. The thing with it is to start the conversation with an understanding with the other person that this is important. It's not just a conversation. There's something here I need to say. There's something here I need to get across. So you're setting up that process of being listened to more intently. You get their attention. They're not going to be looking around or looking at what's going on a computer or a telephone or looking at what's in the shop. They're going to be in your face with their attention. They're going to be really thinking about listening to you. So that's the first thing you can do to set it up. Second thing is, in your conversation, try and do less is more. If we're trying to put information across, less is more. Stick to the content, stick to the thing you're trying to say. Don't elaborate, don't go off. Give examples of things so that people can get it, but the examples would need to be in their frame of reference, something that they understand, not something that is alien to them. Try and set the conversation up in a way that you're trying to make it win before you start having it. And then put that information across, whatever it is. As I say, less is more. And then ask for feedback. Ask what they want to give you as their understanding of what you've said. So you can kind of get a flavour of where they're at, where they've got that information, what does it mean to them, how is it being received, how is it given to them. And you can then adapt your future processes based on that, because it's not going to go well straight away. Obviously, things take time to change sometimes. And that process can help to adapt your delivery. Because feeling misunderstood is not easy for most of us. We take it very personally, and rightly so, really, because it's aimed at us. It's part of what we're trying to do. But in order to get that being understood, as I say, we have to set up the process. And certainly if it's important information, something that really means a lot to you, then you need to have that connection. You need to have that understanding. And then you'll be speaking not just the same language with the words, but you'll also be speaking in a way that the other person is best able to receive it. When you're doing, if you've ever done, the kind of whispering messages when you were a kid, you'll say something to the next person in the line, and they'll say something to the next person in the line. And by the time you get to the end of not really many people, probably about 10, the message will be completely different because we hear things differently, as I've said. And so if you're trying to look at that, work with it, just maybe do some of these exercises and see what happens. See how people take in information, how they react to it, and what feels comfortable for them. It's a very interesting thing is communication. It's part of most of our work as counsellors, and doing things inside the room with people and bringing a bit of directness to that aspect of their conversation, using immediacy, using something in the moment, can be really helpful for people to understand that their communication may need adjusting, may need adapting, and you can help them to do that within the sessions that you have, because how they communicate with us in the room will be similar to what they're communicating outside, I would suggest. So we can help them to become better communicators. And most of our work is about communication in some way, shape or form. Hopefully that made sense. And as I've said, if you enjoy the podcast, please like and share, because you never know, somebody you're connected to might need this information and you might not be aware of that. So it's always helpful to give people that option. My name's Ian Wallace. I'm the Messed Up Counsellor. Take care. Hi, thanks for listening to the podcast, and hopefully it made sense and was interesting for you. Please subscribe, like and share. With the podcasts, you never know who will be helped by the things we talk about, things we share. We don't normally tell people our problems, but by sharing it and helping other people to understand things. The book Insecurity, It's All About Me, is also available now through Amazon. And it gives you an understanding of what drives insecurity, how insecurity works within our human dynamics, and how you can get a much more closely, much more secure connection with people. It gives you lots of ideas and thoughts, which is really good. So thanks for listening. Subscribe, like, share, hit the button. And if you've got any comments, please give me them and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks very much. Take care.